Hello. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. My name's Aisling Ward and I'm the Assistant Curator here at Artcore. I'm delighted to be joined here by our most recent artists in residence, Ryan Heath and Katy Hawkins. Today we're going to be talking about what they have been up to during their residency, as well as their exhibition outcomes, which are currently being shown at Artcore Gallery until this Saturday. So if you haven't been down already, I recommend going to see it. It's a great show. So for those of you who haven't yet seen the exhibition, Ryan and Katy were asked to respond to the title, Circling the Square, Visions of an Unmade City, where the artists were invited to critically interrogate the situation that is Derby. The area that they were focusing on was Osnabruck Square, which happens to be the square in which Artcore Gallery is situated. So now I'll ask Ryan and Katy to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their practice.
Ooh, who's going first?
I will. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. I'm Katy Hawkins. I work as a place and community-based artist and producer, curator. I am interested in people's relationships to where they live, and a lot of work explores that and is maybe about unpicking connections or strengthening them. It's also often about maybe coming together to celebrate things that might be overlooked or to ask questions about things that might be challenging. So it's sometimes softly political and often about coming together. And yeah, so I've been spending a bit of time in Derby for the purposes of this residency.
Thank you, Katy.
Cool. Cheers, Katy. Yeah, I'm Ryan Heath, and I'm an artist that works in quite a few different ways. So I produce paintings, sculptures, just done my first short film as part of this residency and part of the show. And I also do stuff with mixed reality as well. So I kind of like to spread myself across loads of different mediums and talk about lots of different things. But they usually come back to the theme of psychogeography, which in short is basically just how a particular place makes us, I guess, think, feel and act, to put it quite to sort of sum it up, I guess. And yeah, I suppose that's my spiel about who I am and what I do.
Nice, thank you. So I think maybe we could start a little bit about your research, how your research project began, Katy, and this idea of designing in and for friendship. So I was wondering if you could tell us what you mean by that and your influences.
Yeah, so it was quite a long journey to get to the research question, but eventually it was asking what it would look like or mean to design in and for friendship. So the in friendship, which I'll get to in a bit, being to adopt the position of friends, maybe to extract all the things you hold true to be, hold true to how you approach friendship and to apply them in your working relationships. So not to be friends, but to apply the ideas. And then to design for friendship, so friendship with oneself, so to design spaces for self-care, for solitude, and also spaces for friendship with one another, and particularly pre-existing relationships and also new, so opportunities for encountering other people. This would also, not that I looked at it too much, would want to include more than human beings, so not just taking a human-centric model to this. The in friendship was like very much new to this new part of the work here, and yeah, I came across this idea by Lucy Lopez, who's in the space and a best friend of mine, and she was talking, we were walking around Cannon Hill Park in Birmingham where we live, and she told me this idea of like working in friendship, and I was like, I literally don't know what you're talking about, or I just sort of like, I got a general gist, but I obviously didn't get the essence of it. And then I was, we were in lockdown together in the same flat, in that room she's in there now. I started reading this book of hers, Celine Condrelli, who she's mentioned quite a bit. So I'm just going to share my screen and read a bit of the text for you now. Full screen mode. Yeah, so this breaks down the research question, and the whole idea that for the duration I wanted to be sharing what I was doing and inviting people to come along with me. So I constructed a kind of temporary research group. So I was sharing people who opted in. I had maybe about 10 or 12 people I was emailing by the end, and sending them regular updates on what I was researching. And the aim was that all the research could also be conveyed via Instagram as well, so it was easy to engage with, and more people joined as I went along, which was really nice. I was happy with that. So it's a research question. There was like follow-up questions, a reading list. And yes, the first text was on the designing in friendship. So I'm just going to read this out. That's okay. The following text addresses the practice of friendship as a specific entry in relation to the large question of how we live and work together towards change as a way of acting in the world. Being a friend entails a commitment, a decision, and encompasses the implied positioning that any cultural activity requires. In the context of self-organisation, friendship is perhaps at its most evident in relation to a labour process, in how we work together. I've been engaging with what I call support, which I consider essential to cultural production for some time. Friendship is a fundamental aspect of personal support, a condition of doing things together that deserves substantial attention, and is in many ways the missing chapter to my book, Support Structures. Friendship, like support, is considered here as an essentially political relationship of allegiance and responsibility. One of the best definitions of cultural production is perhaps that of making things public, the process of connecting things, establishing relationships, which in many ways means befriending issues, people, contexts. Friendship in this way is both a setup for working and a dimension of production. In addition, working together can start from as well as create forms of solidarity and friendship, which are then to be pursued as both a condition and intent. So I will just stop there. But it really struck me as so interesting. Like in my work, I'm interested in how you work with people as part of sincere, meaningful processes, and this has seen me try out all different ways of working, kind of early days creative consultation, which I realized the limitations of quickly, and you know, to things we talk about like co-design and co-production and all these different ways of working. But I think, and at the same time, so many other practitioners are doing the same. And I think this you'll see it everywhere all the time. And some people use it with integrity as part of processes and others maybe don't. And I think people would say a lot of kind of neoliberal organisms have taken it on, and there's maybe through language hiding the fact there's a very clear power dynamic there. Anyway, friendship was exciting for me because it's a relatable term. Everyone has friends, everyone knows what that means. And to design in friendship is something that people can call it out if it's not that, and they have a point of reference, and it's not a confusing term. So it just, as a way to work with people or to pursue a way of working, I found really exciting. Shall I hand over to Ryan at this point, or?
Yeah, I guess Ryan, you can respond to this and kind of talk about how your work links to aspects of this research.
Yeah. It's interesting when you're talking about, I guess, the more maybe bureaucratic makes it sound a bit boring, but like the sort of the systems in place around spaces. So I guess the work that I've made has kind of been has two strands. So I sort of started thinking about the more mystical, the more magical side of things, and I looked at Osnabruck Square and thought, okay, is there some way I can sort of create like a symbol for the square, and like a kind of guardian, thinking of the space having a sort of like a custodian that sort of acts as like a representative for it. And then I thought a little bit about the kind of the less mystical side, the more bureaucratic side, the more sort of I guess like the side concerned with finance and money, because I was handed, or given rather, a PDF which had some plans for the square. And I'm not sure if this is really going ahead, or if those particular plans are going ahead. But this PDF had I guess a list of like proposed changes that were going to happen, and it saw the square kind of undergo a redevelopment. So I thought, okay, these are quite interesting and like so I sort of thought it'd be quite interesting to combine these two and create a piece of work that looks at the magical, looks at the kind of more bureaucratic thing, and combines them somehow and has them face to face with each other and interacting in some way. So I decided to make a film where a millennial sort of mystic, I guess, a millennial psychic, has been hired by this sort of fictional architectural firm, and I play the sort of cringeworthy bureaucratic type, a bit sort of David Brent-esque, I guess, from The Office. And then my friend Sam has played the mystic, and I've sort of looked at the language that these two might use. And I've interviewed a couple of people from Derby who identify as psychics and figuring out sort of what language they might use. I also had a look at some of Katy's notes when she's had meetings with architects and developers, and sort of picking out bits of language from that and sort of using that as part of the script writing process. And it's been really interesting for me because I've not made work like this before, so it's been like super exciting. I've been like really yeah, I've come away from it with like so many more ideas. It's kind of a shame it's ended. But has anyone not seen the film? Bob and Lucy, have you not seen the film, or we have?
I've not seen it.
Not seen it. Have you seen it, Bob?
I've seen it, yeah, not all of it.
Just a bit.
Yeah,
Cool,
and I watched a chunk of it, so I know what it's like. It's very funny.
Some idea. Oh, good.
I'm assuming you meant it to be funny.
Yeah, I wanted it to be tongue in cheek. I think I quite like the idea of talking about themes that maybe are quite yeah, it's a classic thing, isn't it? Talking about something that might be quite heavy through humor, which I guess is quite a nice device to use, and a tried and tested one as well. And the film, for those that haven't seen it, is, I guess, a sort of a kind of exorcism, although the mystic wouldn't call it that. She'd call it something else, more of a ritual cleansing of this guardian, of this sort of creature that's supposed to represent the space. And that was made. Sorry,
I was just going to say, do you want to talk a little bit about the Guardian and the workshop and how that came and linked to the final video?
Yeah, I'll chat about that for sure. So I thought it'd be interesting to use like a collaborative process, because it seemed like quite a collaborative piece of work anyway, and it made sense for me to get more opinions on board, because it was a project about public space. So I worked with Artcore's youth group, and Catriona sat in on that session, and I sort of led a workshop on the idea of an exquisite corpse to help generate and to help ideas flow for this creature, for this guardian, to kind of figure out the look of it and what it might look like. So that was really interesting. It was kind of me initially sort of saying a lot about like, okay, we like, don't make it a ram, don't make it a goat. Derby's definitely like got that, it's got sorted, that's a mascot, it's fine, we don't need to do that again. But it just ended up popping up and happening. So we've got a kind of, there's an image of a few different variations of this creature that we've sort of stitched together from various different drawings, and the head has always been a kind of goat, so that appears at the end of the film, with some fruit and veg around its neck to sort of represent the market, because that was again like a recurring motif that appeared in the workshops. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So I guess back to Katy, thinking about this idea of self-care in the public realm. I wondered if you could talk about this and talk about what you've discovered through the particular acts of self-care that you do in the public realm and from doing other people's as well.
Yeah, I maybe I ended a bit abruptly earlier, but just to say, to finish off, the working in friendship, it resulted in creating diagrams off the back of conversations with different practitioners who work with communities to try and capture different relationships and ways of working. And people were invited over the course of the exhibition to add their own, which was great. So then there was the designing for friendship, and yes, so like you say, I was interested in acts of self-care people do in the public realm. I observed some people in the square and saw what they did there that might be considered self-care. I noticed, I have them in my bag, a man for a long time, he was sat sorting kind of football cards like this and kind of methodically sorting through them all and looking, and I was thinking that's quite, it's a calming, can be a quite calming act to do, and potentially could be seen as quite private. And I guess it's maybe taking these private acts and bring them up into the public space, which is what Ryan points to as public, it's ours to be seized. So yeah, some observation, some drawing on different things I might do, and having conversations. I was interested in the idea of also adopting a methodology of me working in friendship, which might mean speaking to friends or developing new friendships throughout the course of this work as well. I might just share again. So here, yeah, this is tell me what it is. It's obviously the question of what is friendship firstly. Mutuality, trust, respect, adaptable, loyalty. These are some of the diagrams. So let's see. Yeah, this was the presentation of different acts of self-care. So there was a bucket in the middle filled with water. I often go and stare at the surface of water as an act of self-care to soothe myself when outside. There isn't water in Osnabruck Square, however there is the brook that runs underneath it, and there have been conversations around exposing that, but I think eventually what the intention is to reference it through surface design. So I thought a cheap version would be to have a bucket full of water and put it in the square for a while for people to look upon. And we also had it there as a friend was recalling being in Vietnam, and I remember too, often older people might go to the lakes or overlook a body of water and do some gentle exercises. So I did a bit of that myself. But yeah, I was collecting different ones and asking people to add throughout the exhibition. A lot of people saying drawing and recording, sitting. I heard times of people bringing something from home with them, something comforting, maybe a cushion, maybe a blanket, bringing a bit of the private into the public and blurring the line, which I think I've always been quite interested in. I spent some time living in Berlin, and I guess I was immediately struck by the fact that people bring their private things to the front. It's not hidden away. It's people are greening the streets and their front gardens, and it's more public and collective. Well, that was my feeling. And sometimes I feel in Britain we're sort of encouraged to do everything behind the walls. So some other ones. I watch the way the trees move in the wind. There's a really nice oak tree in Osnabruck Square. I eat nice things slowly and breathe deeply. I sit on the floor and let the ground hold me, and I remember we are part of something bigger. And Ryan shared that he listened to brown noise, which I've started doing as well. So it's been quite a nice opportunity to share our different strategies. On that note, I wonder if anyone in the call has anything that they do to soothe themselves or would consider an act of self-care when outside. Maybe Bob or Lucy or Zahir or anyone? Lucy?
I'm trying to think as well what I do.
I guess I try and go swimming. In like swimming outside is a self-care act for me.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I go running.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to feel like a body, I think, with running and swimming, and a bit more informal and fluid.
Yeah, I found throughout lockdown becoming much more intimately involved in the immediate surroundings and being much more observant. I mean, I've gone to places that are within a few hundred meters of the home that I never knew existed. So wildlife, birds, all sorts of things I've suddenly become much more aware of, and I go back and I'm looking again.
Oh.
Mm.
What kind of birds do you have around you?
Well, the ones that, I mean, in the garden we have, there's robins. I've become very intimately connected with robins. Because if you go out and you dig anything up, there's a robin, kind of immediately, what are you doing, you know? And magpies, I despise magpies because I'm aware they're terrorizing other birds. And you often hear them. I mean, there's a bird going mental because there's a magpie.
Do they?
So
I didn't know.
I'm very connected to the bird life. I'm
the same. I'm with you. Yeah. I've really gone off herons as I found out that they eat ducklings. So I've been
just concerned. Do they? That is never going to look at them the same way again.
Pardon?
I'm never going to look at herons the same way again, I don't think. It's interesting though, Bob, that you say about noticing your surroundings more, because I think, I don't know, maybe this isn't everyone's experience, but before the pandemic, I definitely would sort of leapfrog to other places. Like you get a mode of transport to another place that's far away. You don't end up sort of taking the journey on foot a lot of the time, or you're at home and you're being transported to other worlds through Netflix or through anything that you're consuming in your house, usually screen based. And it's only actually in the last few months that I've deliberately tried to make a conscious effort to leave the house and stick to sort of my local area and explore that a bit more. And I found it really nice. Like I had a lot of anxiety, like a lot of people do when they're sort of pent up inside, and that act of walking and just exploring a few hundred meters, like you said, it's been really fruitful.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think it's also worth saying that the diagrams in the booklet and all of Katy's research are being exhibited at Artcore Gallery if you haven't seen them, and you're welcome to go and add to them, make your own diagrams and add to this kind of research project. So on that note, I was just going to ask you, Katy, your choice to kind of exhibit your work as a process instead of a finished product. I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that aspect.
I think I'm really 100% genuinely interested in everyone's thoughts on this, and I see it as like an evolving thing. So it was all just about asking questions really, and then finding out what people thought and slowly folding it in. I guess a lot of the words, you know, asking people what they consider to be friendship, it's other people's words, and I think that can keep growing. And it wasn't too strict, the curation. I asked people to draw their idea of working in friendship, but people have drawn like maps of where their friends live, or themes around their friends, just taking it on, and new stuff comes from that. So that's been really great. Yeah, people adding their self-care acts or telling how they make friends in the public realm. And there's also become a body of what friendship is not, because a lot of people, I guess, you refer to what something is in relation to what it is not. And so that's ongoing as well. And people talking about, not friendship being expectant, extractive, with agenda. Other people added words like lying. So it's it keeps growing, and I'm hoping to like develop it iteratively in that way. So it very much is in progress, and I'm putting it together as part of a little publication. So if anyone would like to receive that, let me know, or let Aisling know, and I will post you one. But I think it's a really interesting like provocation and question. I asked the architects working on the square about what they thought of that, and they did say like, friends with them all, we can't be friends with them all, like everyone's, and I'm not strictly proposing that, but I think it's interesting to think of. And I should probably add as well, I guess a lot of this has come from the place that we know right now that we don't design in friendship for a lot of people. People are proactively designed out of spaces, and that's where we're at right now. So we are very far from designing in or for friendship, and often places aren't accessible, so how could you even be there, let alone be friends with anyone, or people are feeling unsafe and so on. So I think it's and it's quite nice to be asking it in a positive way, but provocatively. So I've kind of gone off your question, but it's a process, it's an ongoing process, and it will keep moving. So that is why.
Great, thank you. So Ryan, I've got one more question, and then we could open it to the audience to ask questions if they'd like to. Yep. But in your blog, so during the residency, Katy and Ryan have both been updating a blog on the Artcore website, which is really interesting to kind of look at to see how their work's evolved and what they've been up to throughout the residency. And you talked about how we could encourage play and discovery in the public realm without the expectation of financial contribution. And I just wondered if you had, what's your ideas around this and kind of how we could contribute to that as a community?
Yeah, I did start off talking about that quite a lot. I was referencing a group that some of you might know. They're a kind of a sort of radical French group, or at least it started in France, called the Situationists, and they're quite like widely known within the contemporary art world, but maybe aren't so popular kind of outside of that sphere. But they basically do a lot of kind of, or they did a lot of experiments in urban space where they would kind of, one of them was quite bizarre. Some of them were just sort of drifts across the cityscape with no intention to sort of follow predetermined routes that are going to basically make you buy stuff. But one of their interesting experiments was that they tasked two of their members, both from different cities, I believe, to go and just scour the city for cards. And they basically found loads of different playing cards. And then they had this sort of, this game of, I think it might have been a game of poker, but through letters. And yeah, it was just a quite interesting way of like thinking about how you can sort of, I guess, scavenge and then play with urban space a bit. Not really sure where that game was going, but it's an interesting activity to sort of think about using the space in ways that aren't just about getting from A to B, or about being led, I guess, by predetermined routes that are encouraging you to spend some money. But I ended up not exploring that one as much as I kind of wanted to. My initial idea was to do a lot of like walking workshops outside and kind of gather some material for the Guardian stuff. But I kind of in doing the project and in doing the residency, it just didn't work out that like logistically we couldn't do that because there were like restrictions in place, which is another interesting thing, and maybe something to explore afterwards, I think, in future.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
That idea sort of came through with the work I was doing, and it came from a starting point, well, the shared starting point maybe of like reclaiming the public realm as a site for personal and collective ritual. And with this proposal to rename it Friendship Square, I thought, what if the naming was an invitation to perform, to enact friendship, rather than to close it down and to name it and put it to bed, but instead an invitation, which I think is an interesting thing with namings of places. And yeah, thinking what values are we inscribing in the public realm, and yeah. So
it's like a whole genre of street furniture that's just hostile, isn't there? It's just designed to stop people from staying there. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's noticed that more and more for the last few years.
Yeah. So you can't put down anything, and always got the arms in the way, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just thinking about like comfort and back to comfort and self-care, and researching ways in which we can make spaces more inviting to sit at, and thinking about Katy and I were talking about how people don't like sitting outside on the floor, and kind of we were exploring that a little bit in the exhibition. I didn't know if you wanted to expand on that.
Yeah, I guess it's always interesting to see the benches that they choose to use. There's been in Windrush Square in Brixton, I observed like that square for a while, and they used to have like just general benches, and then they got rid of those and they replaced them with these little individual chairs that were in particular social configurations of like 3. So you've got 3, you can't move them, they're nailed into place. So dictating particular configurations, particular social, well, you've got only three, where people would sit on the arms or whatever. And I thought that was an example of bad, and the designer trying to be quite deterministic and framing their vantage point onto the wider area. And they also had some fluid seating where people, the function isn't so inscribed in the form. It's kind of like, you could lay on it, you could climb on it, you could sit, and as a result, because it wasn't so clear, people did seem to seize it up and chat and do different things. It bred new types of relations. Anyway, to wiggle around, yeah, thinking about chairs that allow for and don't allow for and give you agency or no agency. The Netherlands have quite a lot of swivel chairs in the public realm, which I think is interesting. Like, at least you have the agency to pick a vantage point and view, even if not socially. But yeah, I guess, I think, you know, if you ever go Spain or anywhere like that, everyone's sat on the floor, aren't they? Like, in touch with the pavement, like chatting, spilling out in bars, having drinks. I think in Britain that's seen as like, I don't know if there's some like classist connotations there. You know, you don't sit on the floor. Like, maybe if you're homeless, you sit on the floor, but you don't, like, there's quite, you don't, if you do, which I do quite a bit, you get stared at, and it's sort of not the thing. So I think that's a barrier probably for us culturally, equally so as the weather. So that's also the difference between Spain and Britain. But yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Ryan and Katy?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, you know, you have done this research project on this Osnabruck Square, and your exhibition and your research is still ongoing. So is there any next stage you can think of, you know, for taking this project forward? Do you have any idea which we can take on board and maybe discuss with the council? Or there are lots of, you know, talk happening between Artcore and council, and maybe either temporary intervention or a permanent, you know, like you both have done really well. And I think we had a meeting with the head of region, and he was very keen to see proposed, you know, any ideas or anything. So it would be good to be you guys to be involved, you know, continue, you know, your contribution if you're interested.
Yeah, from my side, it's interesting to contribute people's ideas for how spaces could support more community building, more friendship with each other, and also to support self-care, given we're post-COVID, everyone's having a hard time. So in those ways, I could see that might be something that it'd be nice to share, and a prompt to work in friendship with the public and to do proper consultation and so on. But yeah, so
yes.
that'd be great.
Yes, it's nice that there's some interesting kind of yeah, some input, I guess, from creatives in the public. Like, I've been thinking a little bit more about the next few workshops I'm going to do at Artcore after this, because I've got a few more, and they're going to be focused on this idea of the Guardian again, and I guess exploring that a bit further, because I only managed to do one workshop on that particular subject or theme. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what comes out of that. Maybe there could be some kind of I don't know, some kind of temporary sculpture project or something I could see like manifesting from that. But yeah, like I'm really keen to explore this. It's kind of, yeah, it's given me like a load, just my neurons are firing. I've just got loads of new ideas for artwork, which is you know, what you want as a creative.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to have a discussion separately, you know, with we can have a separate meeting, and we can plan. We are in a process to planning, you know, how to use Square more, you know, like engaging more people, you know, or more creatively, and it would be good to meet and discuss and plan something, temporary or permanent. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to do some self-care workshops in the square. That would be great to all come together to try out different methods and think about how we feel afterwards. So
yeah.
Yeah, sign me up.
Yes.
I think also bringing more people to the square and to the city after lockdown, and when people are a bit more nervous about coming in, it's a nice way of kind of, yeah, trying to get people to join in with what we're doing. And yeah, does anyone else have any questions?
A question. I don't know is my sound okay? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Bad internet. It's a question for Katy. I was wondering about I guess the idea of designing in friendship, like if the end goal of that is to kind of set a series of like parameters of what that is that would then be proposed to developers or to councils, or like what's yeah, because I guess at the moment it's sitting in between or in all of the pots of kind of research and artistic practice, and yeah, potentially making proposals or demands on those sort of bodies. So like, I guess I'm just interested in where that goes and what if there's a kind of ultimate idea that you're working towards. Or
well, my dream would be to explore this as a PhD and to try and do a placement within a council and think about what values people hold as civil servants, people working with councils, when they work with their public, how they consider that relationship. I believe they should be at service to the people that they are meant to serve, and what Salim was talking about, to position yourself as an ally, to take on people's issues as your own, and that is all people's. So that's what I believe. So yeah, I would really like to at least have more discussions around that and understand about values that are upheld at the moment, or the way in which people, how they act or how they see their position. I understand the innumerable constraints that councils face that get in the way of these kind of things as well. So that's also obviously important to consider. But yeah, I would really like to take it in that direction. Yeah, or as a question to point to where we are not as well, as a starting point as well. But there's a really cool organisation called Public Practice, and they're trying to get different people into the public sector to sort of shake up councils. So I'm thinking to approach them and talk to them about it, and talk about like the value stuff that underpins people's way of working. Yeah. Can I ask everyone a question, please? I would be interested to know a word from you all of what you consider friendship to be, or a value you uphold. So I mentioned before, people say like trust, loyalty, mutuality, respect, adaptability. Yeah, I'll just give you a couple more seconds. And Aisling, do you have one?
Maybe openness.
Ryan?
Maybe reciprocation, I think.
Bob?
Good question. I don't know. Loyalty?
Yeah. Katrina?
Mine is probably a bit similar to Aisling's, but honesty.
Lucy?
it's not one word, sorry. But when you said mutuality, I was thinking, yeah, like mutual support and mutual joy and mutual challenge. Like, yeah.
Zahir? Oh, you're on mute.
Togetherness.
Togetherness.
Yeah.
And Sana?
Friendship is understanding each other.
Understand each other. That's nice. Thank you, everyone. That's helpful. Yeah, I'm glad friendship is being talked about more and more in public, I think, and being acknowledged as more of a significant relationship than it maybe has been in our recent history, which sort of privileges romantic relationships. But there seems to be a lot more chat about platonic relationships. So that's nice. It's important to me. Cool. Thank you.
I think that's a nice way to end it, really, if unless anyone else has got any more questions. No. Okay, well, thank you, everyone, for joining. It was really nice to chat to Ryan and Katy again and to get to know more about their processes for the exhibition. The exhibition is on until Saturday, so if you haven't seen it, then please do come. And for those of you who don't know about Artcore, we're a contemporary art centre in Derby. We have a gallery, studios, we run workshops, a shop, and we're opening a cafe soon as well. We do lots of participatory workshops with the community. So yeah, if you're interested, have a look at our website. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.